continues. Let's find out who's in and who's out right here at GP Lyon. What's up? Welcome, my friends, back to live coverage of GP Lyon. I'm here in the booth with Simon Gertzen. My name's Riley Knight, and on your screen, it is Dominic, Harvey, and Shuhei Nakamura. And I can tell you this, we're in for some spicy, spicy business today. Shuhei Nakamura, the Japanese Hall of Famer, kicking things off with a stomping ground. A sacred foundry. But Dominic Harvey on the other side, ladies and gentlemen, he's on something very special indeed. Simon, we got the scoop from our team captain, Richard Hagan. What's going on the right-hand side of your screen?
Yes, I also do have the deck list, so I'm cheating a little bit by checking it out here. He's looking to be... I don't even know. It's Jund Value Life from the Loam Grizzlebrand Reanimate.
And look at this Shuhei Nakamura. He's just, all the answers just been put on the table in front of him. What is going on, Mr. Harvey? Well, let me show you. I'm playing Life from the Loam. I'm playing Grizzlebrand. The expert to my right, Simon Gertzen, doesn't even know whether he's coming or going.
Well, I can quiz you on some cards. Do you know what Goblin Dark Dwellers, Ishkana Graf Widow, Pia and Kiran Nalar, and Pulse of Muraza do?
So this is just Jund Trade Binder?
This is main deck.
This is main deck?
This is just the main deck.
Oh, so this deck is not... Sorry, we've mistyped Goryo's. It should, of course, be called Jund Trade Binder here.
We will see. I'm sure there is a master plan. I think casting Pulse of Muraza with Goblin Dark Dwellers was actually a standard tech at some point.
Well, in any case, here Dominic Harvey is already getting that value train rolling out from the station here with a couple of fetch lands coming back from that Life from the Loam. But it looks like Dominic Harvey's just like, wow, that Goryo's Vengeance deck that did so well last week, I want to play that. But I really like Life from the Loam, and I'm a big fan of Reju. I'm just going to play I'm going to play all of it. I'll play all of it. Jam them all together.
A bit inconsequential to have the Thoughtseize only in the sideboard. Bit disappointed, but you have to make space for those one-offs. No, I have to say, it looks promising. It looks interesting. It's not it doesn't have Seismic Assault. That would be a good combo with Life from the Loam. But we've seen other hybrid decks actually play the Goryo's Vengeance Grizzlebrand combo.
Yeah, and we can dial down on this a little bit. I know we're being kind of silly here, Simon, and I'll just ask you to just dial that down for just a moment here as we see a Goryo's Vengeance bringing back a Grizzlebrand, because it's definitely your fault that that's the case. The fact is that Grizzlebrand is also excellent with Pia and Kira Nalar, with Ishkana Graf Widow, especially once Delirium is brought on. And so this is very much a well-named deck. It is a Goryo's Vengeance deck that isn't going all in on that get Grizzlebrand into play and win the game from there. There are other angles of attack.
It's playing a bunch of legends that are also good if you just hardcast them. Because once you reach 4 or 5 mana, Pia and Kira Nalar, Ishkana Graf Widow are very respectable threats.
Oh yeah, and Ishkana Graf Widow is a great way to stabilize. We saw throughout her career in Standard that she was just one of the best defensive plays in the format, and I don't think that'll be too much different in Modern. Dodging a lot of the removal in Path to Exile, not Path to Exile I should say, the only one she doesn't dodge, Lightning Bolt, Fatal Push, Abrupt Decay and what have you. And the Gristle Daddy is here to stick around as well, drawing Dominic Harvey a ton of cards. Now let's have a talk about Shuhei Nakamura as well, because he's on a very aggressive strategy as well, something that has really risen to the forefront of Modern recently.
It has, but we haven't seen it this weekend so
much.
We've seen Blue-White Control be the main choice for Hall of Famers, Platinum Pros in attendance. Shuhei is going with an aggressive Jeskai. Is it even control if you're playing for Geists?
No, it's definitely not a control deck, and this is one of the greatest percentage point differentials you can leverage when people see you open with a Celestial Colonnade. They're expecting, okay, well, I can play around that, I can play to a longer game, and then all of a sudden, you're getting hit for 6 by a Geist of Saint Trapped, like you're facing off against Ricky Ponting, and all of a sudden, this deck can turn corners with cards like Spell Queller and other disruptive options like Logic Knot, attacking from 2 angles at the same time.
Yeah, and we should maybe mention that Dominic Harvey has about 20 cards in hand. But he doesn't have an infinite combo. He doesn't have Nourishing Shoal or Fury of the Horde or anything like that. He's just using Grizzlebrand as a value engine. As an
honest, proper, old school draw engine, just like Richard Garfield intended, and now just like Dr. Garfield intended even further, we're going to a discard step of about 500,000 cards here. Nakamura, however, he doesn't care. He's got Harvey on what you would have to say is a 2-turn clock. Nakamura's deck is replete with all sorts of burn, and this is the plan A of what Nakamura is looking to do. Attack early and often with the Geist of Saint Trapped, finish him off with a Bolt, Snap, Bolt, and it's a fantastic game plan, one I think is very well positioned in Modern.
If you get to attack with Geist, in one turn and it doesn't die, this one card has almost already guaranteed you 10 damage, because flyers are almost impossible to block in this format. So, and of course you don't want to start casting removal spells on the Angel token. That's just a waste of resources. So Geist of St. Traft, I have to say, one of my favorite cards.
Of all time.
Even though it has hexproof.
Oh yeah, no, I really, really like this card. Takes me straight back to 2012 when we were playing those Delver decks, and here is Pia and Kieran Nala. That's a nice way to slow down the onslaught from the Geist, but Nakamura does have the response in a Spell Queller, and that is enough for Dominic Harvey to pack him up. Let's talk more about this Jeskai Tempo deck. I know we're raving about Jund Goryo's Vengeance, but I'm really pleased to see this deck doing well. At 5-2, Nakamura is in a position to put himself into day 2, and I tell you what, Bolt Snap Bolt is a favourite line of play of mine, Simon, but this deck really is streamlined and focused and ready to go.
And we have the deck list here in front of us. You have to look at this deck from a mana curve perspective. All your spells are 1 and 2 mana, and then you have 2 Electrolyze, 3 Cryptic Command, and your power plays are on 3, your creature power plays. So you're going to play some interactive spells, and then you want Geist of St. Traft or Spell Queller to come down on turn 3. Of course, Geist is the most powerful thing you can do, but Spell Queller is also amazing.
It's just insane. And against especially a lot of Supreme Verdicts that we've seen, with many players playing a straight blue-white control this weekend, Spell Queller is such an excellent answer to it, because it still, it doesn't counter it, but it exiles it. It prevents the Cryptic Command, the Supreme Verdict from resolving, which is usually more than enough to push through those final points. And
Jeskai Control is actually traditionally kind of weak to blue-white control, because you're drawing all these dead removal spells. But if you suddenly have 4 Geists and 4 Spell Quellers to add to the mix, I think the matchup turns around. And as we said, Jeskai Control is actually maybe not the best description.
I really, really like this list, this Jeskai Tempo list. I don't think it's a control deck. I think that's a misnomer, and it should be, in fact, referred to as Jeskai Tempo, because this deck, it isn't looking at pointing those Snapcasters at creatures all the time. It's looking at pointing them at the Dome. I think plan A is to connect with the Geist a couple of times, clear the way with stuff like Path to Exile, keep the board clear, resolve counter spells against opposing threats or opposing disruption, and eventually just clean up with, again, these hard-hitting creature-based threats.
And that's the definition of tempo. You are sticking maybe only a single threat, and then you're riding it to victory. Because the rest of your cards just trade so effectively.
Plenty of interactive options in the board here for Shuhei Nakamura. Let's have a quick look as well, because post-board it can transition to be a little bit more of a controlling deck with things like Anger of the Gods, Celestial Purge, Negate, Stony Silence and Rest in Peace are industry standard here. But I like stuff like Supreme Verdict. It's funny to think of it in a creature-based aggressive deck, to bring in Supreme Verdict. It can be really good to reposition yourself post-board when they're getting ready to tussle with the Geist of St. Traft.
And if you're playing against 5-color humans, sure, you would want to be the aggressor, but they're just not going to allow it. So you have to make some... you have to find a different game plan.
Well, I wonder if Nakamura knows what he's going to do against Dominic Harvey. I mean, as we have a quick look at what's going on in his list, as we can remind you very quickly, he's playing a Jund Goryo's Vengeance deck. It is not a combo deck. It is a very mid-rangey type deck, but it plays Faithless Looting, Collective Brutality as ways to get things like Borborygmus Enraged and Gristlebrand into the bin. Not for a combo finish, just for that value, just for that sick value.
I mean, Borborygmus is probably the most combo-y card in his deck. If he really fills his hand and gets to get Borborygmus back onto the battlefield, but he's not playing Nourishing Shoals, he's not playing Simian Spirit Guides. No. He's a fair Grizzlebrand deck.
And this is a deck that would be happy, unlike traditional Goryo's Vengeance decks, this is a deck that would be happy to grind things out, right? Get to turn 7, turn 8, start casting Ishkanar, start pushing towards, value plays like Eternal Witness, getting back removal spells or Kolaghan's Command. It's even playing Life from the Loam, so you can see it's very ready to go into the late game.
The old hardcast Grizzlebrand.
Oh yeah, easy game for Dominic Harvey's, especially with copies of Life from the Loam.
Yeah, I mean, most decks in Modern actually run out of mana-producing lands, but maybe this list is actually made to prevent that, playing not too many fetch lands. But I don't know about it. It looks interesting. We certainly haven't seen everything the deck can do. We actually saw it reanimate Grizzlebrand and then lose, which is usually not a great sign.
Actually, that's a very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. Usually, if you have a resolved Gristlebrand on the battlefield, usually you want to do something that's going to win you the game on the spot.
If that was a traditional Grishol brand list, the game would have been over.
Yeah. Plays heading into game number 2 now. Shuhei Nakamura seems happy with his 7, as indeed is Dominic Harvey. A faithless looting to start things off for him. So he'll be looking to discard some of those big old fatties into the bin.
No need to mulligan if you can just draw 2, discard 2.
And here is Griselbrand in the bin, exactly where you'd want him. And it's back over to Nakamura now, who's going to kick things off with a Serum Visions. I have to say, I disagree with Nakamura. I mean, certainly, I'm not going to fault anyone for taking his opinion over mine. I like Opt a lot better in this list than Serum Visions. A lot more.
Okay.
GP spectators.
Also because it's more instant. It's more instant speed focus.
You have so many instant speed cards to deploy at 1 mana. You've got Lightning Bolt, you've got Path to Exile, even stuff like your copies of Lightning Helix and Logic Knot don't cost that much more. You're playing an instant speed game a lot of the time with Spell Queller. Geist of Saint Trapped is the only sorcery speed card in the deck, essentially. Play Opt.
Well, Serum Visions is on raw power level. It's certainly more powerful, but I see where you're getting at. It's wow.
Okay, let's talk about power level. Here's Goryo's Vengeance bringing back Griselbrand on turn number 2.
This is a replay. This is a replay of game 1.
Wow. And Dominic Harvey is going to draw 7 cards off of the Gristle Daddy. But of course, nothing. I mean, he's all dressed up but got nowhere to go. He's got.
Well, this is now go back up to 7 cards in hand. That's what
okay.
That's what this turn is. And you dealt 7 damage.
So just get in for a bunch, refuel. Going to discard some other huge big monsters that a future Goryo's Vengeance might bring back.
And then you also have the hand, the full hand.
Yeah.
To make that Barbaric Moss. I mean, most of the lands are going to the graveyard, as we see here. There's also Liliana. Harvey is pretty well set up here, I think.
Just the value play here for Harvey. Nakamura, you'd have to think, has some kind of a response. You would say, well, his hand isn't looking great, Simon.
Electrolyze is one of the worst cards in this matchup, if we're honest.
Liliana of the Veil is going to make both of them discard. Does he have a Logic Knot? Does he have a Mana Leak? Nothing on turn 2 from Shuhei Nakamura. Oh, no.
Shuhei is only playing a single Mana Leak. He's really not playing too many counter spells.
No, only the 1 Mana Leak, the 2 Logic Knots, and of course the 3 Cryptic Commands here. But this Planeswalker is set to have a huge impact.
I'm a huge fan of Liliana of the Veil. She's so powerful, but it doesn't feel oppressive. It feels like you always have interactive games when she comes down. Sometimes she's even a bad card, so you can't really even deploy her, even though she costs 3. And I love how the 3 abilities interact with each other.
An all-star of the modern format, to be sure, but once again a very fair card, a pushed card, but still not doing anything that's particularly broken. So let's see what Nakamura's response is here. He does have a Vendilion Click in hand, although, however, this Inquisition of Kozilek might have something to say about it. Or are we going to see the click cast in response? Been brought to the front of the hand. Nakamura clearly considering it, although that would just mean it would eat an edict from Liliana, right?
Yeah, this is always the problem with Planeswalkers still being not having been activated. But I think if you're trading for an edict here, you're actually quite happy.
So let's have a look at what Harvey is working with. Another Liliana of the Veil, in addition to Goblin Dark Dwellers. Goryo's Vengeance going to hit at the bottom of the library. Thoughtseize and Faithless Looting rounding out the hand for Dominic Harvey, who draws a card off of the click trigger.
That was not a very difficult decision, given that otherwise Barbaric Moss Enraged would have come down.
And Electrolyze is going to get picked up by this Inquisition of Kozilek. Now, we didn't see Nakamura's hand when he opened on 7, but since then, I mean, 6 lands in his opening, 10 or so cards. It's not a great way to pave to victory.
No, so that Serum Visions really didn't deliver anything of value.
If only it had been an Opt. Would have made all the much difference, to be honest, but still. I wouldn't have been whinging about it. So Harvey now, considering how to deal with this 3-1 Flash Flying Fairy Wizard. And a Thoughtseize is going to clear out that Cryptic Command. So 3 lands in hand for Nakamura.
And that's pretty huge, because now you're really feeling the pressure.
Oh yeah, he's got to draw something great here. Edict away the threat here.
At least he got a few things here. He got the immediate threat of Goryo's Vengeance, and he got a -2 on Liliana, so at least there's no ultimate being threatened immediately.
Two terrific cards on the top of Shuhei Nakamura's library as well. I bet he wishes he was playing Opt. Could have scried that Snapcaster to the bottom, drawn the rest in peace.
I think you're overvaluing Opt a little bit, Riley.
No. Never. I've never been accused of exaggeration. Ever. Not even once in my life, Simon. It's never happened. Faithless looting now for Harvey.
Pulls off Muraza the pickup.
Oh, yeah. Does this rest in peace completely change things? Nakamura still has to deal with this Liliana.
I mean, a Liliana on 2 or 3 is actually much less scary than one that's threatening to uptick. Also, the plus ability is not that beneficial for Harvey once his graveyard is exiled. We might even see a Snapcaster without anything being flashbacked.
Just to pressure that Liliana there. Yeah, it's a perfectly reasonable line. Nakamura now.
I would run it out.
Get it out there.
Especially if Harvey doesn't plus. Did Harvey pass the turn?
He did. I mean, he made the indication that he didn't want... Yep, there we go. Snapcaster Mage. It's on ambush Viper duty, and it is going to take down Liliana of the Veil. Rest in peace, the follow-up play for Shuhei Nakamura, and he's putting himself right back in this game.
And look how fast he started to play.
Oh, yeah.
Once Dominic passed, he was like, okay.
I'm in it.
Snap, take 2.
In it to win it, baby. Till the final whistle blows. Here we go. Cryptic Command on the top of Nakamura's library, so you'd think he's sitting pretty. Now, Harvey does have a great number of cards in hand. Now, this deck, we've discussed it, Simon. It is able to go long and start to play a more value-oriented game.
But it cannot really function when Rest in Peace is on the battlefield.
That's very true.
Life from the Loam, Goryo's Vengeance, Faithless Looting, your cards... Even your Ishkana Graph Witter, like, you are relying on the graveyard.
Mm-hmm. In many cases, there are cards that just do more or less nothing, or at least greatly reduced versions of what they're designed to do. And I mean, Pia and Kira and Nalara is perhaps the exception to that.
Yeah, but we're looking at, let's say, 3 cards in the whole deck.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. It is the exception that once again proves the rule here, Simon. So rest in peace, a stone cold hoser against poor old Harves here. You have to fight very hard.
I think right now you're losing the race even to colonnades or anything that Shuhei can deploy here.
Well, right now it's just the lonely Tiago Chan, backed up by, of course, a Cryptic Command here from Shuhei Nakamura. And Harvey is going to go hunting. Ooh, look at this. Abrupt Decay in hand. Have you just got to snap that off against the Rest in Peace?
I think I would respond with Cryptic Command.
And bounce it?
Yeah, it's definitely worth the consideration. Bounce your Rest in Peace, draw a card.
Oh no, Dominic Harvey is looking for a land which I don't think has he got no targets? Surely not.
He discarded a bunch of lands. After the Grizzlebrand turn, he discarded 3 or 4 lands.
Sheltered Thicker, thank goodness.
Well,
but that means...
That's tapped.
It is tapped, but it does mean that it wasn't just he didn't just stone rain himself. But he can't deploy that Abrupt Decay just yet. Now, Cryptic Command is effectively an answer still to the Abrupt Decay. Even though it can't be countered, it means that Nakamura can return the Rest in Peace to his hand rather than countering the spell.
Maybe it's better to just let it resolve and use the Cryptic on the next threat, but I think getting rid of Harvey's graveyard is probably the most powerful thing you can do in the whole matchup.
So, Cryptic Command in hand, a Lightning Bolt is the draw. Harvey down to 10 now as Snapcaster Mage does what he does second best and hit for 2. And now here is the Abrupt Decay. Oh, Nakamura's just going to let it resolve. All right. Oh, he's thinking about it.
No, he's thinking about whether it goes into the graveyard or into exile.
Yep, so the Rest in Peace does see itself on the battlefield when it is put into the graveyard, so it is then exiled by the replacement effect. Abrupt Decay, however, is not. So a restocking of the graveyard here for Harvey, and it looks like Chandra's dead parents are going to remain that way with that Cryptic Command.
Yep, and Shuhei rewarded for his patience here. I think he's almost representing lethal already. Land, activate Colonnade, attack for 6, Harvey down to 4, and Shuhei has a Lightning Bolt in hand. This is not going to end well.
Celestial Colonnade getting in with Snapcaster Mage. Lightning Bolt in hand, as you said there, Simon. Harvey on the ropes on 4. Nakamura looking to make it a clean sweep with his Jeskai Tempo deck here in round number 8, propelling himself to day number 2. That means Harvey is going to have to pack his bags and move away here, as 5 and 3 is not a record that will get you across the line. Can he find a way to keep himself in this on 4 life? facing down 2 threats and a bolt in hand from Nakamura, who is sitting there. He knows. He knows he's fine. Inquisition off the top from that faithless looting. Got a hand. With all that discard, looks a little bit more like a foot. Both of these discard spells are going to hit the bin. Oh, he's counting up for Delirium here, Simon.
Yep. He's he can make it work. There's a problem though, and it has to do with very early on in the game when Harvey discarded that many lands to the Grizzlebrand. Well, not to the activation, but to the end of turn step, to the cleanup step. He has actually been struggling to deploy lands. We saw him with the awkward fetch. We saw him tap out for Pia and Kiran Nalar, and that meant he didn't have Ghost Quarter available to get rid of the colony. If he was on 8 here, I think it would be a completely different game.
So Harvey, yes, as you say, hasn't been able to deploy, hasn't been able to leverage his mana as effectively as he might have hoped here. And that's put Nakamura firmly in the driver's seat. Got his hand at the 10 of the 2. Swerving around all over the road, but in complete control all the same. Like an expert stunt driver, ready to get across the line. Harvey now ships the turn. Back to Nakamura, poised to take this game out. Is that double bolt in hand? Geist off the top. In comes Tiago.
Shuhei's just playing with his food now.
Oh yeah, just batting it all around. Just like a cat waiting to push a vase off the edge of the table here. Pulse of Murasa. Gain a bunch. Double bolt use, says Nakamura. And that means that the Japanese superstar finds his way into day number 2 here at GP Lyon. That is that for this match here. A clean sweep for Nakamura, playing once again Jeskai tempo. Unfortunately, Dominic Harvey's run here at GP Lyon ends. You can see one of his supporters at the background. They're offering a small, well, just pointing out to him, yeah, you lost 2 games to 0. 2 games. That was how many you just lost there, Domo. Anyway, that is that between Nakamura and Dominic Harvey. Simon, your thoughts as we talked so much about this Jeskai deck. I really think it's in a great position. I really think that it tussles with most of the format very effectively. Why aren't we seeing it succeed more?
Well, I mean, we have to look at the record as well. Shuhei just barely made day 2 here.
All right.
So he is coming off of 3 buys, and that means he has now scraped together a 3-2 performance. Let's not, like, I want to see more of Geist of Saint Traff before we call it the...
Surely you're not saying that I'm letting my personal opinion of a card get in the way of good judgment here.
You're just biased towards Celestial Colony.
Excuse me.
That's just very apparent.
What an outrage I'm suffering right now, ladies and gentlemen. I can scarcely believe my ears. No, I think you're absolutely right about that. But I also think I'm absolutely right in that this deck is the best deck in Modern. It's unbeatable. And that Shuhei Nakamura probably picked up 2 losses because he mulliganed us 4 both times and was just very unlucky.
No, we can ask him about that.
We can ask him about that. Right now, however, we're going to head back to table number 2 and have a look at what's going on there. Bradley Barclay, here he is, the Scottish team national champion. No, I think he's the captain, excuse me. And Matteo Soldi here on Tron. And both of these guys also at 5 and 2, playing for their tournament lives. It is a classic story of good versus evil, with white-blue control facing off against Tron. Of course, Tron has had, well, an interesting day. We've had some very powerful wizards indeed play the deck. We've had some people who obviously natural turn 3 Tron usually scrubbing out as well. Many of them, from what I see, I can see one of my good friends over in the viewing area who went X and 3 like a, well, not exactly where he wanted to be here. We're going to line up that shot of the feature match area once we've got things settled down there. One of our cameras has unfortunately just died. All ran out of juice, my friends, but we'll get that sorted before very much longer. Blue-white control and Tron it's a matchup of the ages, and one that I think tends to favour Tron traditionally.
Yep.
Today, with the addition of, 4 of Spreading Seas, 4 of Field of Ruin, how much does that change things?
It does change quite a bit. In this shot that we just saw, I was actually surprised to see Spreading Seas on Growth of the Burn Willows.
Oh, yeah.
You usually want to cast it on Tron pieces, of course. But also, we are seeing less reliance on cards like Mana Leak. It's not, in the past we had control decks in Standard, in Modern, or Extended. You play 4 Mana Leaks because it's just the best counter you have available, but it's not a hard counter.
No.
So if you know that everybody's playing 4 Mana Leaks, you don't cast your card on 7, you cast it on 10.
And this is really what people woke up to when Mana League really was at its height. We had a fact, the fact where people, I mean, even in Standard, when people were playing Primeval Titan decks, they just waited. They waited till they had 3 extra lands to play they played an extra couple of Rampant Growths or whatever, and then cast their Primeval Titan into a Mana League.
And you might still trade it for 2 Mana Leagues, but that's a whole different story.
It's fine. Yeah. It's excellent. I mean, in this case, and I think Mana League, it is just underperformed to the point today in Modern where it's not reasonably played. And I much prefer a card like Logic Knot, especially when you have to, in Modern, you have to overload your deck with cheap interaction, with cheap answers, things like Path to Exile, Lightning Bolt, what have you. That makes a card like Logic Knot so much more attractive.
And also, when your opponent is not playing around it, then they're usually tapping out. It's not like then they have 2 mana available, right? So it's the difference between a Logic Knot for 1 being enough, or you need a Logic Knot for 6.
And you can cast Logic Knot for 2 mana so much of the time due to the between fetch lands and whatever else. And that's just, I think, a snapshot of how Counter Magic is working in the format right now. In any case, we did get that issue ironed out, so we can head back to table number 2. We do apologise for the brief break there in our transmission, but of course had to fix up the issue with that camera. It's all done and dusted now, and we are back to Bradley Barclay and Matteo Soldi. Both of these guys at X and 2. Only one of them will make day 2 here. Only one of them will get across the line. Bradley Barclay out of Scotland, of course, and Matteo Soldi is here on Tron. It looks like he's looking to slam some make a big play here. What's in hand? Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
But he also wants to, I believe, sacrifice that Oblivion Stone. He's down to 5 life. I don't know if he really wants to take another 3.
Vendilion Click coming in once again here. And the O-Stone is looking to clear things out of the way. Looks like a fake counter was put on that Khan already. And that removes rather handily both of those Spreading Seas.
Yep. Now Matteo has red mana available once again for Blood Sun, which is in his hand right now. Oh, there we have it. The almighty Jace.
Oh, yes. Jace, Architect of Thought. I mean, enjoy it while it lasts, Jace from Ravnica. It's not your time to shine now.
The scariest 2 blue play you can make in Modern.
Yeah, for at least the next, couple of days. Jace, Architect of Thought, I mean, a brief spell in the spotlight, but really he was just warming that seat up for Jace the Mind Sculptor, which will, of course, be joining the Modern format in a matter of days. Very exciting time for Blue Mages around the world here. So, Barclay.
Let me know when you lose to Empty the Warrens the next time.
Oh, yeah.
And you wish.
Oh, you'll wish. You'll wish you had the Architect of Thought. What are you going to do? Unsummon 1 Goblin? Yep. Jace the Mind Sculptor. Unplayable. Well, they all die the same to Khan. But a Cryptic Commander returned Jace to the hand by the look of things here for Barclay. He's looking to continue that value train. Now, Soldi needs to put more loyalty counters on his Khan. Is that true?
No, I think he...
Oh, he did?
I think he minus now.
Oh, he minus. Excuse me. That's right, yeah. I didn't see him switch the die.
It looks like he doesn't actually have a lot of permanents under the Karn. If that's the stack there, Supreme Verdict, Settle the Wreckage, and a Flooded Strand.
Flooded Strand.
Sure, I would like to start my game off with a Flooded Strand in play, but it's not a huge advantage.
No, it's not incentive enough, certainly, to snap it off there. Although, Barclay has got his opponent down to 5.
But he's blue-white. He's not threatening 5 damage out of nowhere. I don't even see any Celestial Calm.
Yeah, that was what I was quickly casting my eyes over there, his mana base. Unless he's hiding one up far to the north, up around, what would that be? Dundee, up around Inverness somewhere. We're not going to see any Celestial Colonnades, and a Blood Sun is going to remove that from the equation in any case. Interesting piece of technology here for Soldi. Now, this is effectively a Blood Moon effect against so much of the Modern format, and Barclay here has actually seen enough. So Blood Sun, a great option for Tron because it doesn't shut down the extra mana producing abilities of all those Urza lands.
Yep, I mean, you have to really consider in which matchups you want it, but we've talked a lot about Blood Sun, and this is actually one of the first times that we see it being played here.
Well, it's done a great job. Bradley Barclay realising that he can't win through this and that Soldi had more or less the game on lock. So these guys can hit the sideboards here. And, we can begin to talk about how this matchup shapes out post-board here, Simon. I know that White-Blue Control is going to lean very heavily on Spreading Seas. It's going to lean very heavily on Field of Ruin. Is that the only angle of attack it has against Tron?
I think it has to kind of pressure the opponent. Because if you are gearing up for a long game against Tron, you will lose eventually. I really like how the Planeswalkers allow you to be quite aggressive, even with the control deck.
Tron, on the other hand, I mean, is the matchup just so favourable that you don't really need to switch too much around when you're facing up against control decks?
Basically, yes.
Just chuck those big ham sandwiches into play and eventually choke out your opponent on them?
You have World Breaker, which is tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2 Ulamogs, which are tremendous. If you reach Tron, of course.
So Soldi there, I think he's done the shuffle your entire sideboard into your deck trick. Oh no, is he keeping in Kozilek's Return?
No, I would be very surprised.
He's just counted out 3 copies at the front of his deck there, Simon. 1, 2, and 3.
Maybe he doesn't sideboard anything, but wants to pretend like he is.
Oh.
So for example, if I'm only sideboarding
he's taking that, yeah.
if I'm sideboarding a single card,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want my opponent to know that my sideboard is pretty light,
Mm-hmm.
I just take 4 or 5,
Mm-hmm.
shuffle them in, and then take them back out.
And take him back out. And that was what was going on there with Kozilek's Return. Matteo Soldi playing all sorts of silly tricks here.
But I actually think this is a better way than to shuffle your whole sideboard in.
No.
Because if you do that, your opponent is already kind of aware that something is going on.
I think people don't even watch. This is a comment that Brad Nelson, I think, made, or maybe it was BBD. It was one of these American superstars. They said whenever they're sideboarding, as much as they can, they keep their eyes glued on their opponent. And this is not something that people do. You just kind of sit there, you fiddly-fart around with your own cards, figure out what you're going to do, what you're not going to do. You can gain so much information by keeping an eye on your opponent. It's hard to do, though.
Because you're sideboarding at the same time.
Yeah. It's hard to do. Bradley Barclay now. And Matteo Soldi going to hit game number 2 here with Soldi, of course. Tron getting up in game number 1. White-blue control going to have to dig in very deep to find a way forward here. And Bradley Barclay holding the hopes of the Scottish nation on his shot. Just kidding. Duncan Tang is undefeated. Don't even worry about it, guys. And a Serum Visions to kick things off for Barclay. Here is a Relic of Progenitors now for Matteo Soldi. Is that, I mean, how well positioned is that card? Is it just because you've got cards to take out and you need something that cycles to bring in? I mean, it's good against Snapcaster, right?
You might even have it in the main deck. I think some Tron decks absolutely want Relic of Progenitors in the main. But you're going to be happy in these control matchups. It trades for a card either way.
Yeah, and when you're taking out cards that don't really matter a huge amount, and the Stony Silence now is not that at all, as Soldi now is going to have a hard time getting any value out of his Spheres and his Stars.
And Soldi is actually being punished here in a subtle way. But if you realize that he could have activated the Relic on his turn, he would have gotten the Serum Visions out of Bradley's graveyard. Instead, he waited and let Barclay sacrifice a Flooded Strand. Unless there's a very good reason, you should always activate Relic of Progenitors at the very first opportunity.
And especially when there's a card that is likely to matter or could matter a lot more than something like a Flooded Strand. That's a great point. Grove of the Burn Willows is an interesting inclusion here for Soldi, especially in multiples. And I can tell you one of the reasons why it's there, Simon, because of its utility against Death Shadow.
Gain 1.
Yep. You make your opponent gain 1. It gives -1/-1 to all their Death Shadows. And it means critically... I mean, Tron doesn't care about an opposing life total.
No,
they can be at 20, at 20,000, 20 million, 20 squillion. It doesn't matter, right? Because they will eventually beat them with Worm Coils and Khans and Ulamogs and what have you. So the Grove of the Burn Willows is... I don't know if he's playing any red cards, but Soldi's in a great position against Death Shadow decks with the Grove here.
We do know that he's playing Bloodsun. So he has a very good reason
to
play those lands. I don't think you would play them just because they are non-basic, for example, which is a disadvantage.
So you wouldn't play them as like upgraded forests?
No, I don't think that makes sense.
Okay, well, we can see Soldi also playing forests in his deck as well, at least one. And Barclay now, he has resolved Jace Architect Thought. I'm sure that he'll be one of the many blue mages around the world that will be, changing, upgrading, perhaps. Re-sleeving his Jace's next week. 3 cards off the top here for this mini Fact or Fiction. And we're going to have a nice even split.
Do you want the Colonnade with the extra land or without?
Would you like cream on that milkshake, sir? Or au natural? Barclay goes for the 2 cards here. And here is the Colonnade now. Barclay with a nice full hand.
Yeah, actually discarding, so didn't get that much value of his second Jace activation.
And here is the Ballista getting it for 2.
He could have maybe plussed. Would have been an even exchange, but
another Ballista makes sense here.
You're not going to waste your counter magic on a 2/2. That doesn't do anything, or are you?
Well, Barclay's certainly having a think about it, and it's going to be a disdainful stroke.
I don't know. That doesn't feel great.
Especially when disdainful stroke trades for most of Soldi's deck.
And how much less impressive than a 2/2 is it going to be?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's just going to get the game done and dusted here for Bradley Barclay, Elspeth's son's champion. We don't even have a time to announce her entrance into the arena before Soldi has packed up his cards. He cannot beat the Planeswalker. That seemed like a very, very aggressive concession, Simon. Just no way forward?
His hand was terrible. He had all these artifacts that did nothing under Stony Silence. So I understand that he wants to save time to play game 3.
Well, it makes a lot of sense here.
I think he's heavily favored. He just needs to bring in some Nature's Claims and basically drive this matchup home. I think if he sideboards conservatively, carefully, maybe take out some of these Grafdigger's cages and make sure not to lose to Stony Silence, he's all set.
Well, a timely victory there for Bradley Barclay, forcing the Game 3 decider between White-Blue Control and Matteo Soldi on Green-Red Tron. We've seen both players very willing to concede in the face of insurmountable odds, and it looks like Soldi was ready to give that one up as a bad job here. Those Nature's Claims coming in, as you mentioned there, Simon.
I cannot understand why you would not want all your Nature's Claims in Game 2 already. You know you're playing against a deck with Spreading Seas, with Detention Spheres, with potentially Stony Silence, of course. I think that's something that has so much more utility than a Grafdigger's Cage shutting off a Snapcaster Mage.
So these players now finishing touches on this on the shuffle, and we're going to head into game number 3, and this will be it for our coverage of GP Lyon today, ladies and gentlemen. What a pleasure it's been for us to bring you live coverage of this modern event so far. We're looking forward to having you back tomorrow as we get underway with day number 2, and I tell you what, day number 2 is only going to feature one of the wizards you see on your screen, Bradley Barclay and Matteo Soldi, because this is the cut at 5-2. They no longer have a loss to give if they want to make it through to day number 2, and Soldi not looking good for him as he mulligans down to 6. What's going through the heads of these players here, Simon? We've talked about the psychology of being in the feature match area at 5-2, knowing you can't give away a loss. Is this a point to relax and breathe out, or do you really focus in, dial down, and dig deep?
You have to dig deep, but on the other hand, what are you going to do? You're not going to draw better opening hands, or you can't just will yourself into playing much better, right? I think what you have to do is you have to trust your deck and your skills. For example, taking a mulligan can be a really good sign in the sense that you're correctly identifying hands that can win and that cannot win. So I don't even think that mulliganing with Tron in this matchup is such a bad sign.
So did he forget to draw off his Chromatic Star?
That would be...
I think he forgot to draw off his Chromatic Star. We may have to get that double check because it looks like he may have...
It's fine to miss a trigger.
Oh, is it a trigger?
On this one,
on the
sphere,
trigger. It's not a trigger. Yeah, you can't miss it. Yep, okay. I see. On the Chromatic Star or Chromatic Sphere, it's not an ability you can miss.
It's not what you want to be doing after a mulligan, but it is, let's say, tournament legal.
Oh dear. It's tournament legal play to forget your trigger, and I know Bradley Barclay will be thanking his lucky stars that was the case here. But I know that he won't be too happy about the way that Soldi's play is shaping up now.
And just to clarify, on Chromatic Sphere, it's not a trigger, so your opponent cannot forget that draw.
Yes.
Remind your opponents if they do that.
Because
you can also remind them if they miss it on Chromatic Star, of course.
You don't have to.
You don't have to.
You can.
I would.
Khan liberated now off the turn 3 Tron here for Soldi. Barclay, however, does have a response. Are we going to see a disdainful stroke for the Khan liberated?
Or Logic Knot. Or Mana Leak.
Any of these would get the job done. And Barclay now finds a hallowed fountain. Into play tap, you would think this is going to provoke a response here from the Scot.
Yeah, I mean, if he lets Karn resolve, the game is almost over.
So let's see. It's a negate. Nice one. Managed to pick the 1/2 mana counterspell we didn't mention, Simon. So Barclay keeping the deck nice and clear here. Field of Ruin as well is a great pickup for him.
Yeah, that or Spreading Seas would be the perfect follow-up here.
Yeah, just immediately snap it off. Get rid of that tower. Oh, no, the power plant. Okay.
Yeah, because of how the order your opponent places the lands in, or what he reveals off of cards like Ancient Stirrings, sometimes gives you a little bit of a tell of which card is most likely to be still in their hand. It's not huge, but it is relevant.
So back to Soldi now, who is down to 3 lands, 3 mana. More importantly, that those 3 lands can make. And we do have now the opportunity for him to play a Blood Sun, should he choose to.
He's also holding Expedition Map, so he can get back up to Tron if Bradley doesn't have a second Field of Ruin.
Grove of the Burn Willows, 1 life here for Bradley Barclay. I love this piece of technology here. And it's going to be a Blood Sun.
And we haven't really mentioned this. Of course, Blood Sun shuts off Celestial Colonnade, but also shutting off Field of Ruin is absolutely vital in keeping your Tron.
So Soldi will have to take a bit of a slower approach here, which may give Barclay the opportunity he needs to get himself back in it here. A Stony Silence.
Much less impressive Stony Silence than last game.
And Soldi can now play a Thragtusk. Nice value play for him. Gain some life. A nice sticky, resilient threat for him.
And it resolves. That's huge. Because Barclay was representing a bunch of different counter spells.
Logic Knot, Mana Leak. Essence Scatter. Delay. Miscalculation.
Power Sink. It's not modern legal though. Miscalculation isn't legal either.
Yeah, I know. I was really hoping I'd get away with that one, but no, you pinged me. Well done, Simon. So Thragtusk in for 5 now. Barclay doesn't seem to have brought his 2 spears with him, unfortunately. Always carry 2 spears. And Soldi now can continue to turn the screws in his opponent here.
This is the scary part where the Tron player is just reaching 7 mana without having Tron. But Soldi doesn't have much to work with. Expedition Map is dead, and Walking Ballista is a pretty expensive hill giant.
Well, it is going to be Walking Ballista here. 6 mana 3/3. Like a much, much worse Anointed Deacon. And this has given Bradley Barclay time to pause here.
So what's happening here is, I don't want to call it over sideboarding because it's definitely correct sideboarding, but when you're sideboarding against Tron, you are taking out your anti-creature measures. You don't keep in like all the Path to Exiles and so on.
So Barclay bouncing a land there in addition to countering that Walking Ballista.
Is he so scared of that 7th land, maybe?
Just wants to cast his Elspeth, man. Just wants to cast his Elspeth, and wants to keep his board Khan free for as long as possible. Elspeth, Sun's champion, the champion of the Scottish people here.
Ton of respect for Karn there, bouncing a land.
Oh yeah, really, really paying dues to the big boss. 3 soldiers going to defend Elspeth from the Thragtusk here.
Triple block, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? A spatial contortion?
No, there are no spatial contortions after sideboarding against blue-white control, but you can just chump block with 1 soldier and then go for basically an army of soldiers in the ultimate. But I think blocking is just the superior line.
Keep the board clear. 3/3 entering play now for Soldi as he plays an Expedition Map that does nothing and a Sphere that does even less. And Barclay now sitting behind an active Elspeth Sun's champion. He's got to be happy with how things have turned around here.
Elspeth is an amazing card in Modern if you can reach.
Spreading Seas on the Sanctum of Ugin. Okay.
Yeah, more scared of that trigger.
Does it even have that trigger?
It does, because it's not an activated ability.
Oh, I see.
Oh, wait.
I think it's just no. It's
what
just
does
they
Blood
lose.
Sun actually say?
Do they lose? Does Blood Sun mean they lose activated or just abilities? We're gonna have a quick look at this here.
In that case, that would have been a misplaced spreading seas, right? But although
no, lose all abilities. It doesn't have the ability. Whoops. Elspeth, up to 7.
This is time in round 8. Please proceed to the 5 additional turns.
Those previous 3 soldiers tussling with that beast look like they brought 2 spears.
Your time extension.
Elspeth brought 2 spears.
Elspeth brought 2 spears. Poor Heliod put one through her, unfortunately.
That's one of them. That was one of them.
There was one of them. Simon, how dare you? That's terrible, mate. Another Thrag Tusk here for Soldi.
I think I want to be on the Elspeth side of things.
When it comes to her versus Heliod?
No, but against Thrag-Tusk.
Oh, against Thrag-Tusk, certainly. Against Heliod, no. She got her pants pulled down. It was an embarrassing situation for fans of Elspeth when Heliod absolutely did a number on her. Although, in the future, maybe we'll see Undead Elspeth. Who knows? That would be cool. And that was a sad day when Elspeth met her fate at the hands of the White God in Theros. Thrag-Tusk once again. And this time, just one soldier goes out to bravely meet the Tusk.
Because now we are entering Elspeth Ultimate territory. For those that played Standard when Elspeth was around, that was often the finishing touch.
Looks like Barclay is going to get in for 5, however, and Elspeth goes up to 9. 3 more soldiers are made here, and it looks like Barclay doesn't want to have to. I mean, he's going to activate that ultimate when he can attack for lethal, right?
Yeah, but is he running in a bit of a risk here? Let's say I draw nature. Oh no, there are 2 Stony Silences. Okay, because against 1 Stony Silence, I think a top deck Nature's Claim could still get Soldi out of it.
So
Soldi,
0, please
2 cards in hand.
Area. If you are currently 8-0,
he has a Sylvan Scrying by the look of things. Yes, indeed. What's he going to go and search out? He can go and find that final Tron piece here, which is going to boost up his mana, but still doesn't do a huge amount here, the power plant.
But there's nothing else he can search for that really does anything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the Blood Sun has shut off most of the abilities on his lands, accepting, of course, those mana abilities. And it's back now to Barclay, who is so close to finishing things off here. Matteo Soldi on 25. It's looking good if this Elspeth can finally get the job done.
So he's just short of lethal here, I believe.
Activation, Elspeth's emblem comes down, +2/+2 to all creatures, and we're going to see a big attack here.
Yep, but it's not lethal.
So, 21 damage coming in through the air. Soldi unable to block it.
He had 24 damage. He had Soldi on 1.
1 soldier staying back to defend the fort here. And Barclay, Detention Sphere in hand. A range of answers here. Does Soldi have what it takes to continue to tussle with this Scott? He does not. Bradley Barclay flying the Cross of St. Andrew. Blue and white control. Getting all the way over the line, ladies and gentlemen, at 6-2. We will be seeing that proud Scott alongside his countrymen Duncan Tang and, well, Wayne Dillon, I guess we'll give him the honorary Scott as well, my friends. It is, of course, time for us to wrap up our coverage of day number 2. Simon, we've seen decks of all stripes. We have really gone very deep on a format that is wide open, is very diverse, and is set to change even more in